Okay, Nautical Ninjas, today we're going to be talking about cleats. There's a lot more to these than you may realize. Okay, so let's talk about attaching our vessel to this cleat. And the first thing we need to think about is the lead of the standing end versus the working end. So the standing end, sometimes called the standing part, should not have a lead that looks like this. Now, that is not constructive because you can see the standing part is interfering with this bit on the cleat. So if there's any upward pull on that, by putting this line underneath it will firstly lock up. That's one of the reasons we don't like to do a full round turn to begin with. But secondly, it does just interfere with the use of that bit. So rather than have it that way, we put it that way, and therefore that bit is totally unimpeded and available for use. And now we can turn up 3 figure of 8s. Now 3 figure of 8s is the magic number when you secure into a cleat. 3 is guaranteed that your boat will still be here in the morning if you put 3 figure of 8s on. Now with those figure of 8s, a lot of people like to finish off. There's 2 methods. Most people I've seen, they like to do put a half hitch in the rope, in the line I should say, and they feel nice and secure with that. The negative of putting a half hitch on a cleat is that it can be just a little bit fiddly to remove or release the line from the cleat. So my preference personally is to just finish off with a couple of round turns on the cleat and always tidy up any spare line, referred to as the working end. Tidy it up any way you like. You can either coil it or in fact we can cheese it. You can cheese the line. Normally the prettiest of the methods to tidy up a tail end on your line. Looks lovely and tidy and pretty there, and it's no longer a trip hazard on the dock. Okay. The next thing we want to talk about on cleats is a working turn, and this is quite an important feature of cleats. When we're trying to pull a boat in, or a vessel has got tension on it, it's a bad idea to just be relying on muscle power. We want to involve a cleat in this. So first thing, offer the line up to the cleat and take 1 S turn around the cleat like this. It's called a working turn. Now, the great thing about this is I can pull the boat closer, even if it's under considerable tension, by pulling the line at 90 degrees and recovering the slack, pull in, recover the slack, pull in and recover the slack, pull in and recover the slack, and so on. And therefore the vessel cannot pull that rope. There's sufficient friction to stop the boat pulling that line around the cleat. But I can obviously always choose to introduce some slack into the line, and therefore you can easily pay out as much line as is required. Now let's talk about the half hitches for a second. As I say earlier on, my preference is simply 3 figure of 8s. Doesn't have to be pretty, just get 3 figure of 8s on the cleat and finish off by going around. It's nice and easy to release, no problem. However, if for any reason you can't get 3 figure of 8s onto the cleat, perhaps the rope is too thick, too fat in diameter, then I would almost always definitely be sure that I introduce a half hitch into the line. So what I would do is put a half hitch in. If you can't get 3 figure of 8s, perhaps you could only get maybe 1 figure of 8. Put your half hitch in. Now at least that will lock up if so much tension comes on, and the 2 figure 8s, if they do slip around the cleat, that will jam up, thereby preventing your boat from disappearing in the middle of the night. But the negative is, obviously it is going to lock up and jam on that if tension works its way on. So really, my personal preference for cleats is 3 figure of 8s, round a couple of times and finished. As I say, you can't really undo it as easily if there's half hitches involved. But that's a little bit about the cleats. Hopefully you found that useful.